friends, welcome or welcome back. It's been a while. I've been busy. I've been mentally ill. It's fine. Here we are now. We're back. We're ready to tell a story. It's gonna be fun. I'm just getting over a cold, so if I have a sexy raspy voice, you're welcome. If not, whatever. It is what it is. So, a quick housekeeping note. I am not in any way making this video to throw shade at anybody or to expose anybody. If you, for some reason, want to know who I'm talking about, just don't. It's not worth it. It's not worth your time. It's not worth their time. This story that I'm about to tell you ended friendships. 20 years of friendship, I'm talking, out the window. And I sincerely hope that it can be mended at some point in the future. It's wild. It is wild right now, so I need to tell you my perspective of the events. I'd like to make a quick note that I was smoking marijuana this night. I did have a Caesar at happy hour, so I consider my perspective to be kind of like the second most clear that it could be had I not been smoking weed and enjoying a Caesar with my $5 pizza at Earl's happy hour. Marco, you're making a lot of noise. It's not my intention to call anybody out with this video or to have any kind of, like, sympathy thrown my way because I don't need it. I'm personally more amused than anything by this whole ordeal. But I could really use that ad revenue right now, you know what I mean? So make sure you subscribe if you enjoy this and or my other content. Ring the notification bell because it's been brought to my attention that I've disappeared from people's sub boxes. Not just because I haven't uploaded in like a month or two. So, this is the story of my little sister's bachelorette weekend extravaganza, or so we had planned. My sister lives in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I live in Calgary, Alberta, and that was ideal for our teen years growing up without having to share a bathroom. Really a huge benefit to our relationship as sisters, I think. But she wanted to come out here for her bachelorette party, and I believe it was the maid of honor's idea originally to do so. I'm gonna introduce you real quick to the squad, the crew, the girls, the ladies. So there were 5 of us at the beginning. There was the bride, there was Frodo, a bridesmaid, Wormtail, a bridesmaid, and there was myself, also a bridesmaid. And then we had Snape, the maid of honor. Best friend for like 20 years. It makes sense. Like there's a lot of crashing happening outside. I don't know what's going on. So, on Thursday morning, like bright and early, I think it was 7:30 Calgary time, they landed, flew in ready to start the weekend like a bunch of champions. I was holding like an embarrassing sign that I had made because you have to. It said something like future Mrs. Groom and her ladies or something, just, you know, ready to pick them up at baggage claim. And I got a big hug from the bride and from Frodo, which was really nice because Frodo is kind of the newest friend, I guess. I thought it was nice that she gave me a big hug because, like, I don't know her like that yet, but we're gonna be friends. It's great. Made me happy. Snape gave me a hug. Wormtail kind of hung back, putting stuff into her bag and everything. Didn't think anything of it. Like, it is early. It's exhausting. I get it. I don't need a hug. It's fine. Like, it's fine. This is when things started to get weird. Wormtail, for some reason, suggested just going straight to Banff from the Calgary International Airport. Fine, cool, I get it. But me in all of my sweatpants and bedhead glory, I was not ready to face the day, and I certainly was not ready to have my appearance at the moment immortalized in all of the cute photos they were obviously going to take in Banff that day. Thankfully, the bride was like, actually, we should drop off our luggage and stuff at my sister's house and, you know, go see the dogs and say hi. And I was thinking, okay, thank God. Thank goodness the day is saved because Luke was already at work. The dogs hadn't eaten yet. Like, I needed to go home. And it wasn't a big deal. Wormtail probably didn't realize, I guess, that things likely wouldn't be open yet at 9 or 10 in the morning when we got to Banff. We wanted to get groceries and stuff and booze. So yeah, we all threw the luggage into the car, threw our bodies into the car. I don't know who said it, but somebody in the back seat as they were getting into the car stated, "Oh, it's actually pretty clean in here." thanks, I guess. So I was just like, weird, alright. It's early. Beep beep, let's drive through Calgary. We all got to my house, which I had warned them a few times in the group chat, which I can't find now because young people these days, I know I am young people to many of you, but just stick with me. People younger than myself, like mid-20s ladies instead of late 20s ladies, use Snapchat. I don't really understand Snapchat, and also messages can disappear. So for me, that's not a great platform to be like planning a wedding on, but I'm old. But yeah, I warned them a few times, like, over the last couple months on Snapchat, like, my house is a disaster, I'm gonna really try to clean up the basement and get the front yard all whatever. It's gonna be great, woo! I warned them the day before, I believe, like, hey, just want to let you know my house is probably still gonna be a disaster when you guys get here. I was away working at a summer camp for a week, and my partner, who is like a dude who works full-time in the film industry, and my 17-year-old brother who was on vacation, were the only two people home in that time. I didn't get all the dishes done before I left, so there were fruit flies, because they didn't do the dishes, because they didn't really even make any dishes, to be fair. But that's not even the point. Okay, hold on to that. The fact that my messy house isn't the point of the story. I warned them, like, hey, it's gonna be a disaster, so sorry, like, on Friday before the house party, you guys, like, get ready, put your makeup on, whatever, and I'll clean around you. Not ideal. Totally understand that, but I apologized profusely. My house is probably dirty. Sorry. We came into the house. I came into this room, actually, the office. You can't see it, but there's a bunch of balloon letters right in front of me from the Bachelorette weekend. There's a tower of work stuff, just like makeup and makeup tools and hair tools, and a dog bed, a pile of laundry, a pile of clean clothes that needs to be branded for my cafe. It's like a mess in here, okay? There's just stuff everywhere because this, for a period of time, was our temporary roommate's room when he was here for school. And so the room across the hall is currently like my brother's kind of space. It's like a video game cave in there right now with a futon and a bunch of video game stuff. We traded those rooms, like these rooms have gone back and forth, and I didn't really have time / make time. Like, we're all adults here. I didn't make the time to completely set up these rooms before my summer exploded and got really busy. Yeah, it's a mess, and I was in here kind of like making room for the airbed that we had been discussing since January, February, when we started making plans for this trip. We'd been discussing, I don't have a spare bed, but I have a futon, I have an air mattress, and the world's comfiest couch. If you value comfort over privacy, feel free to sleep on the couch. And the bride actually, like, claimed the couch, I believe, because it's comfy. It's really comfy. Everything is covered in dog hair, but we make do. But yeah, I was, you know, starting to try and create a space of comfort-ish for these exhausted travelers. There were complaints from Snape and Wormtail about not wanting to sleep on an air mattress. Like, we're going to be trading off over the weekend because I don't want to sleep on this the whole weekend. I don't want to sleep on that the whole weekend. I overheard one of them saying something about, like, is there not a bed in that room? No! No, there isn't. There never has been. There was never going to be an actual bed. Unless they were talking about my bedroom, which, don't get me wrong, I would have happily put two of them in the bed with me had I not had a partner who is like 6'1" and deserves to have a good night's sleep when his home is being, like, sacrificed to a bunch of screaming 20-something-year-old women. I'm not going to make Luke sacrifice his bed, okay, is my point. It just kind of hit me from a funny angle that there were complaints about the sleeping arrangements. Complaint is a strong word. There were expressions of displeasure at the sleeping arrangements that we had discussed for months, and I thought it was weird. It really weirded me out because I know these girls. They're really nice girls. Why are they saying stuff like this within hour one of the trip? I don't know, it didn't necessarily leave a bad taste in my mouth, but I I clocked it, you know? Like, every time I mentioned my house is, like, I'm so sorry, they would say, no, don't worry about it. Are you serious? You're saving us so much money. We don't have to stay in a hotel. Please, you're doing us a huge favor. Those were some exact words, by the way, from Snape. You're doing us a huge favor. But that mentality changed pretty much the second they entered my home. And I noticed it. And you could cut the tension in the air with like a feather. No, that's not very dense. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not really good with words, and I'm a little frustrated. Okay, so listen. We had fruit flies. It's gross. I can acknowledge that. But remember the thing I told you earlier about, like, I didn't clean the house 100% before I left for camp, and there were 2 men living here who, you know, there were fruit flies. And you know what I did about it? I made traps, baby. What you do is you take a pop bottle, you kind of cut it in half, turn it upside down on itself, make a hole in the lid, just a little one so that they can crawl in but can't crawl out. Tape the edges. Oh, wait, before you tape the edges, put some apple cider vinegar into the bottom, just kind of fill up the little bumps, I guess. And then, voila. Anyway, back to the story. I acknowledged it. I acknowledged the mess. I was like, hey, so sorry. I'm gonna clean it up before the party on Friday. Like, we're not gonna be here today anyway. Going to Banff, you know. Sorry. We came into my home. They looked disgusted. I apologized. Pretty sure as I was opening the door, I was apologizing. This is me. I'm Canadian and have complex PTSD. I was apologizing, and I promise you that. We kind of put makeup on, the bride and myself. Snape had a shower. Wormtail was kind of hanging out with us, I think. And I believe, where was Frodo? Maybe in the room with the futon, putting on makeup or something. I don't know. And then we left the house. But don't worry, a little piece of my home did end up following us to Banff. And it wasn't just the dog hair. Photos of my home made their way out into the world. Snape decided to just, in broad daylight, send photos of my home to a guy she's been seeing for a couple of months. Like piles of dog hair. You know, if you have 2 labs, you know about the piles of dog hair. I promise you, I feel ashamed. I promise you. Hand to whatever religious document you please. I am disgusted by myself 24/7. On our way out of the city, Wormtail requested to stop at Winners because she had clothing issues. I assume they checked the forecast. I don't know, it's Calgary. If you live here, you know, like, the weather changes constantly. It's not a big deal. So it was kind of rainy and like, gross, like a little chilly. So she had brought summertime clothes, not suitable for chilly weather, so she wanted to stop and grab some. Totally reasonable. So we stopped at the mall, went to Winners. She tried on some items. A white, like, long sleeve crop top, really cute. A white skirt and a gray hoodie. All really cute. But for me, it raised a couple of red flags, and just, I'll tell you why. So the bride had specifically requested a couple of times in the group chat to be the only person wearing white this weekend. To me, that feels pretty, like, yeah, she's the bride. It's her party. It's about her. It's literally about her and not about us. She should be the one that stands out as the bride, you know? So, yeah. We're not wearing white this weekend, and that's fine. When Wormtail was standing in line to pay for her items, she got all 3 of them. I can't remember if it was me or somebody else who brought it up, but we ended up on the topic of, like, she's buying, like, a white outfit. She's buying a white. Should we, like, is it weird? Is it weird that she's out here buying white on the first day of the bride's weekend? And Snape, suddenly so loyal, was like, oh, well, I brought white shorts. The maid of honor brought white to wear. Well, then it must be fine, I guess. Haha, it's not drama, everything's fine, haha. It was weird. Like, okay, cool, you do you, but it was weird, and I saw it behind my sister's eyes. Let me tell you something about the bride. She is stress, okay? She's a perfectionist. She was stressing, which to me feels reasonable if she had specifically requested that she be the only one wearing white on her damn weekend. But we all dropped it because That's not what the weekend is about. It's not about Wormtail and Snape and their outfits. It is about the bride. And we're gonna have a damn fine time going to Banff for the day, okay? So we went to the liquor store, McDonald's, the grocery store, gas station, and then off to Banff. It was actually quite impressive. We made good time. Got to Banff. Naturally, it was raining, and there were no parking spots left in the parking lot of where we were heading. So Frodo has a friend that works in Banff. We're gonna call this friend Gandalf because she was kind enough to be our guide for the evening and stick her neck out for us and book us a room under her name as friends and family. We all thought it was incredible. We got like an amazing deal and it was booked under her name, so we're gonna do our best to take care of it, you know? Except I have a confession to make. I hit my pipe in the room, guys, okay? I had the window open, I blew it out the window, I fanned it away, but I did it, and I'm sorry, okay? And if I'm gonna sit here and talk about everything that was just mind-bogglingly disrespectful about the rest of this experience, I would be a huge hypocrite if I didn't acknowledge my own wrongdoings. So, Gandalf, I'm sorry. I have betrayed your beautiful trust. But I don't think that's the worst thing that happened in that room that night. Let's continue. We did some drinking and hanging out in Gandalf's room, and then once it stopped raining, she took us down kind of the scenic path to town, and there were many photo ops along the way. It was gorgeous. It was really nice. I enjoyed myself. When we got into town, we kind of all realized, like, oh, should we eat? These are girls who have been drinking and smoking. We need some for our bellies, boys. We decided to go to Earl's for happy hour, and I had decided I wasn't going to be drinking that night. But you know what? I had a Caesar, and it was really good. The whole meal was going really well. Until it wasn't. And it was me. It was I who derailed the whole evening, and maybe it's my fault that all of this stuff went down later anyway. Want to hear what made it all fall apart? I made the mistake of asking, so how are we all gonna divvy up the bride's bill? It was kind of met with silence, and then, we can't really afford to pay for her for the whole weekend. Cool. Really, like, substantial addition to the story there, bro. But nobody said anything about that. It's the first meal that we're, like, sitting down for in the province. It's a night out on the town as a bridal party, and it's Earl's happy hour. It's not expensive. That's kind of part of the reason why we chose it. Anyway, bride goes upstairs to the bathroom. We sit at the table talking about how, like, I can't afford to pay for her for the whole weekend, as if that was ever the plan. I believe traditionally, and I'm not trying to be condescending in any way, I promise, but I really thought it was, like, if you go out on the town with the bride, she doesn't necessarily pay for herself. If she gets, like, souvenirs and stuff from the shops, or if she wants to get a snack, like if we all went for beaver tails or something, it's within reason. She can pay for her own dang self, don't get me wrong, at times. But the first meal of the trip, I thought it would be really nice to just have her not worry about it, because altogether her bill was $23. And it would have been, if we would have all split it up, including tip, it might have been less expensive than us each buying her a drink at a regular time, say on Saturday night when we were all going out on the town again. But I can acknowledge, maybe that's coming from a place of privilege, that I just kind of assumed that everybody would have $5 extra at dinner time that day, blah blah blah. I probably assumed too much. Oops. I'm really sorry. But we could have talked about it like adults. But that's not right now. That's later. So long story short, I ended up covering her bill because I'm not gonna make her pay for herself. And also I had said in front of her, how are we divvying up the bride's bill? And then her friends were just like, we're not paying for it. In front of her. My bad for saying that in front of her, but in my defense, I literally had no idea that people would say something like that out loud on the first night of the trip that is about the bride. Anyway, we went and checked into our hotel room, and it was great. There were 2 beds. There was, like, a long desk thing, perfect for putting all our drinking supplies and snacks on. And there was a bathroom with a long counter, and I think it only had one sink, which actually was better for getting ready in, because there was, you know, surfaces for makeup and straighteners and whatever. Sorry, I have a laptop with notes. That's why I'm looking down. We played drinking games, and it was a lot of fun. It was heartwarming and amusing to be the most sober person in the room, watching these grown women give each other piggyback rides across the hotel room because the game that we were playing said to. It was really cute. It was a fun time. Gandalf arrived from her room where she was getting ready to take us out on the town. This is where the next kind of weird thing happened. So the bride was still in the bathroom, kind of like putting the finishing touches on herself, getting ready, you know, and the rest of us were out in the room. Snape and Wormtail inquired as to whether or not Gandalf could find us some Molly. Frodo pretty quickly was like, I don't think the bride's gonna like that. No. And then sure enough, the bride pokes her head out of the bathroom, like, pretty sure she had her straightener in her hair, just like, can we, like, not do Molly tonight? Reasonable. Weekend is literally about her, and absolutely not about us. Quick side note, I would not have touched it, and I would have been very uncomfortable. Because A, I don't do that, and B, it's not about us, it's about the bride this weekend. And I can understand wanting to do that. You live your life, you do you, I'll do me, everything will be fine. But when it's not about you, sorry, it's not about you. As bridesmaid and maid of honor, our jobs are to make sure that the bride is having the time of her life, feels like a queen, is totally feeling herself, and having an incredible time. Celebrating the fact that she is now off the market, boys. We went out bar hopping in Banff, and it's the first time I've ever done that. I've lived in Calgary for 5-ish years now, and I don't get out to Banff until my sister comes to visit. It's one of those things where, you know how you live so close to something so beautiful, but you never take advantage of it? You just kind of take it for granted. I was enjoying myself. We were bar hopping. We were having a nice time. I was, you know, smoking a little bit of weed instead of drinking. I've never addressed why I don't like to drink anymore on my channel. There's no real reason other than I cry when I get drunk. And I don't like to cry and get emotional, especially when the weekend isn't about me. Bride, Gandalf, and Frodo were kind of walking ahead of us towards the next bar, and Wormtail, Snape, and myself were back a little, and I think they were gonna go around a corner and shotgun a beer or something. Maybe they stopped to smoke. I don't know. We ended up in like a doorway of a closed shop and just talking, and they started discussing kind of some of their issues and feelings with me. We had been speaking a little bit off and on throughout the afternoon, evening about how they were kind of strapped for cash, and this trip is expensive. It's a 5-day trip, kind of across the country. Totally get it. Yikes. I understand, dude. And I offered to pay for stuff that night. Let me for now, because it's about her. Like, we'll make it work. We'll figure something out. Like, I don't have much money, but I do have much love for that woman, so I'm going to make sure she has the best time, you know? These girls seemed to be kind of on the same page, but not really. They seemed like they wanted to be upset about something, and they had chosen money to be the thing that they were upset about. They had been drinking for hours. Wormtail started talking crap about the groom, and it got a little weird for me. And I'm not going to tell any details because it's none of my business, it's none of your business. I was kind of trying to be a neutral party, like, obviously on the bride's side, but I wanted to be empathetic to their situation as well. Obviously, like, we're all just people doing our best, right? I listened to them say this stuff and like, yeah, I understand. This is a lot of money. I understand. La la la. I understand. Brr brr brr. I was trying to be cool about all this stuff and not acknowledging the fact that first night of the bride's bachelorette weekend, they were standing on the street with me, kind of talking shit about her. But that's okay. It's fine. People are allowed to have feelings. Feelings are always valid. It's how you act on them, kind of. this isn't a psychology lesson. We don't even have to do anything expensive. That's part of the reason why we were having a house party on the Friday, because it's a long trip. It's a lot of money. They did point out that, hey, we would have been happy to pay for your plane ticket to Winnipeg. We didn't all have to come out here. But was it not the maid of honor's idea to come out here? Even if it was just the bride and the maid of honor that were able to make it out, it was going to be fine. And then they started suggesting that the bride had asked for another bachelorette party in Winnipeg, closer to the wedding. From my understanding, I was not a part of these conversations, but to my knowledge, it was her friends in Winnipeg who wanted to be able to party with her, so they wanted to have a bachelorette weekend or bachelorette night there as well. To my knowledge, the bride was not demanding anything, really, and she's had this stance since day one. If you can't afford to be in my wedding party, I will not be offended. So we wrapped up our little gab sesh, went into the brew pub where the bride and Frodo and Gandalf were waiting for us at a table of very friendly other people that I have never met before and will likely never see again, but they were very nice. I can't remember what they're called, but it was like giant things of beer for $5 or something. Like, insanely good deal if you like beer. None of us really like beer. So I got a water, Frodo got a cocktail, the bride got a giant thing of beer, as did Gandalf, I think. Snape and Wormtail split a $40 bottle of wine, and continued throughout the evening to chat quietly amongst themselves about how they could not pay for everything that they were expected to pay for the bride this weekend. Do with that information what you will. Moving on from that pub, I believe, to the next bar. They were still complaining. But this time, it would have been nice to do some Molly tonight. It would have been nice to make sure that the bride has the time of her f***ing life tonight. Get a grip. My dog kicked the thing. Something that I want to inject in here real quick. The thing about, we would have been happy to fly you out to Winnipeg instead. I never would have expected that. The bride absolutely wouldn't have expected that. She would have probably tried to pay for it herself. I entered this wedding party under the assumption that I was going to transport myself to and from Winnipeg a few times for select wedding events, like the wedding itself, the bachelorette party, the wedding social, which, if you're not from Manitoba, you might not know what that means. It's essentially a grand social event where you throw your money at the bride and groom by buying drink tickets, raffle tickets, blah, blah, blah. As the night progressed, emotions ran high, you know, women drinking. Hello, like, it's gonna get kind of emotional. That's why I wasn't drinking. The bride and Snape ended up in a bathroom stall at Rose and Crown, and they were talking stuff out. I went in to find them, and there was a woman waiting. There was a woman waiting in line to use the bathroom because the other stalls were taken, and the bride and maid of honor were just in the middle stall, and it was quite comical, and I pretended I didn't know them and I left. But they seemed to not be mad. They weren't yelling at each other or anything. Like, it sounded like they were having a talk and things were gonna be fine. And throughout the night, I think it's important to note, I really don't think what happened was planned. I genuinely do not believe that these girls were like, we're gonna ruin the night. Snape had said to me a couple times through the evening, like, hey, do you live close to a coffee shop that the bride and I could walk to tomorrow when we get back to Calgary and just like take a deep breath and talk and just be best friends, have a caffeinated beverage. I think she mentioned like going to get a Slurpee or something too, and just talking it out, airing out their issues so the rest of the weekend and the rest of their lives can just be, you know, get it dealt with, nip it in the bud when you're sober. Yes, hell yeah. Don't have these kinds of conversations and don't make big life decisions when you're wasted off your ass. It just makes sense. Snape was coming from that logical place of, I'm drunk, she's drunk, we're all drunk. We're not going to have a productive time if we talk about this tonight. And then they talked about it in the bathroom stall, but it seemed to work out and everything was great. We went for late night pizza at, what's it called? Aardvark, I believe. They have the best poutine I've ever had in my life. Maybe because I was stoned when I ate it at the hotel. You'll hear about that later. It was so good. Wormtail fell down the stairs leaving the bar on the way to Aardvark, and it was kind of funny. She kind of like scooted down and was fine. That's why it's funny. She was so drunk, which is fine. That's what you're supposed to do. She was doing what she was supposed to do at the bachelorette party, kind of. She was a little bit making it about her, but she was having a good time. Hakuna Matata. It's fine. We're walking down the street to Aardvark. Wormtail like stumbles into one of those hanging planters, bounces off of it, falls on the ground, gets up, goes towards the entrance to the food place, whacks her shin and her toe on a bench outside the door, starts talking about how she broke her toe. It was funny. I'm sorry. It was funny. Frodo had to translate for me because she was like just trying so hard to talk, but barely able to move her mouth, barely able to keep her eyes open. Turns out, maybe she was saying that she thought I was pretty, which, thank you. So are you, boo-boo. They bought a bunch of pizza, Snape Street, for the bride, which was really nice, but kind of weird given the conversation that they had been having, the things that they had been saying to me throughout the night. Weird that, like, these two who were so hurting for cash that they had to be loud about it, split a $40 bottle of wine between the two of them, didn't offer any to the bride. Which is fine. I don't care. I'm just saying. And then spent like, I don't know, I heard $60. That might be an exaggeration. I have no idea how much pizza they bought. I don't know what they got, but maid of honor Snape ended up buying the bride a bunch of pizza and stuff, which is really nice. This is the part of the night where I would think like, we have had a nice time. Everybody buy snacks as you will. The bride can cover herself for late night snacks, because let's be honest, you always buy more than you need when you're wasted. She didn't pay for herself, and it was really nice. Yeah, we called a cab. To my memory, Snape and the bride kind of guided Wormtail's drunk ass up to the room. Frodo and myself split a joint outside of the hotel so that we could go upstairs, be stoned, and eat our poutine. And it was so good, and it was so worth it. Probably because we were baked. Anyway, we were talking about how, like, ooh, things are a little weird, but it seems like they got it worked out. Like, maybe things are gonna be fine, because it was not subtle. These weren't problems that were being, like, swept under the rug or kind of, like, quietly texted about or anything. It was all out in the open. The bride and Snape had actually been saying in the bathroom stall, like, Frodo's playing for both teams. Frodo has been saying to both of us, oh, you're totally right. To which I kind of pointed out, I think Frodo's trying to keep the peace and make sure that we all have a nice time and not fight while we're all drunk. Turns out that's what it was, according to Frodo, and Frodo's actions ever since. Marco, do you really have to do this right now? Oh, if you're new here, Marco is my 90-pound chocolate lab who is laying on the floor in front of me. So yeah, we kind of got settled in, decided where everybody was going to be sleeping, and Frodo and I decided, yeah, we're gonna settle in, eat this poutine. It's gonna be so good. Snape smokes cigarettes, so she was gonna go outside to smoke a cigarette. Reasonable. And the bride was going with her because they're best friends, and it's fine. Like, she absolutely, like, I need it known, the bride does not smoke. She doesn't. She was gonna go be out there, you know. I don't know why I'm explaining this so hard. Anyway, they went downstairs to hang. Wormtail was, I can't remember if she was trying to take off her makeup or trying to lay in the bathtub. She was wasted. So if you've ever been stoned, you know that your reflexes aren't great sometimes when you smoke a joint and sit down to eat food. You're not necessarily going to catch a drunk bridesmaid running out of the room saying that she's going to find the ice machine. Okay? I'm sorry. None of this probably would have happened if we would have been closer to the door and willing and able to catch her, because Snape on the street had been holding her. She had her hair up in a bun. It was really cute. Until Snape was holding her by it because she kept trying to run away. She was a flight risk, okay? And I have friends like that too, who they get drunk and they just run away. Bye. See you maybe tomorrow. I don't know, bye. It's fine, it's just a thing. But we were in a hotel that Gandalf had paid for or like not paid for, we were all gonna split it, but it was under Gandalf's name. Her job could potentially be on the line if we wake everybody up in the hotel. But we were high and content with our food, and we didn't hear anything. Frodo got up off of her bed, went and looked out in the hallway, and she was like, she's gone, I don't know where she is. So I texted the bride and was like, did Wormtail find her way to you guys? And she said yes, crying, laughing emoji, like everything's fine, whatever. So we were just like, okay, good, they're all together downstairs. What could go wrong? So we ate our poutine, waited around for a bit, kind of like an hour passes, and we're just like, okay, time to go to bed. Like, Frodo has been up since like 4 in the morning Manitoba time. Bedtime for her. I'm always exhausted, and it's bedtime for me. Frodo, I think, messaged the bride being like, oh, is everything okay? It's been like an hour, and then didn't get a response, so she was just like, oh, whatever, went to bed. I sent a message to the bride being like, I'm sleepy, I'm gonna go to bed. We were convinced that everything was fine because the bride had a room key, so if they all came back up together, like, it would be fine. We turned the light off and just kind of hoped that they wouldn't just fling it on carelessly when they came into the room, but expected that and accepted that as a reality eventually. So I don't know how long we were asleep for, but suddenly I was woken up by a banging on the door, and I was confused, like, what? Why? Oh, I guess they're home. Oh, did they lose their key? Oh my god. So I kind of like groggily get up out of bed. It's important to note that I have slept off my high by this point. I have a high tolerance, because when you use cannabis medically, you use it a lot more often than someone who uses it recreationally. That's not the topic of this video, but long story short, I have a high tolerance, okay? I got out of bed and I was like, you guys have a key, what are you doing? Like, what the hell? And then I heard like a pretty emotional voice from the other side of the door being like, no we don't, let us in! Like, bang, 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 bang. So I was like, okay, I'm coming, like, what the f***, what's going on? So I opened the door. I don't know how the light turned on. Frodo slept through the entirety of this next chunk of the story, so it's fine. I wish I could sleep through anything the way that woman slept through an entire screaming match. Wormtail comes into the room and is crying, and I was really confused. Like, I just woke up and it took me a second to realize, oh, they all, like, everything came to a head. Everything exploded down there probably. That sounded really gross. So Wormtail is just emotionally, like, rage packing her bag, and Snape comes in and she's like, we're done. Kalela, I'm sorry, I know she's your sister and you love her, but we're done. We're done. We're not staying at your house this weekend. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Something to note is they kept on apologizing to me. That kind of hurt my heart because I didn't, at this point, know about the photos that had been sent of my home. I was genuinely just like, oh my god, these are my sister's best friends and they're up here crying. Like, my first thought was, how do we fix this? We all have to stay here tonight. Like, what are we doing? It's 3 in the morning, you guys. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. Shh, bring it down. No, it didn't come down. Long story short, they had gotten into a big argument about finances. This is why you don't have these conversations in the middle of the night, well after 2 a.m., apparently. It was really upsetting, but I genuinely thought we can talk about this in the morning and everything will be fine. So I kind of tried to hear them out and hear what they were saying, and I'm not going to repeat anything because it's none of my business and it's none of your business. Everybody has a struggle. These girls are no exception. To some extent, are we not all struggling? No, that's a very invalidating thing. Don't ever tell someone who's struggling, well, we're all struggling, because that's not the point. Much like finances were not the point of this weekend. The one part of their big fight that I'm going to tell you about is that I don't think the bride puts the same value on the wedding party that the wedding party does. I'm not saying that she doesn't value them. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think to us, being in the wedding party is a much bigger deal than she realizes, even though it's not a big deal because no one person matters more than any other person. But you have your circle, your group of people that you want with you, you know, to stand with you on your special day. But if you're gonna break the bank doing so, don't do it. It's not worth it. And that's what the bride was saying. To my knowledge, she was trying to communicate to them that, like, if you can't afford to be in this wedding party, it's fine. I can find somebody else who is able to do that. And I don't think she meant for it to sound like, if you ain't got no money, take your broke ass home. But that's how they took it. They were heartbroken because, well, how do you think that makes us feel to just be so replaceable, blah, blah, blah. I can understand that emotion and that feeling. It is valid, and I totally understand. Maybe it made them feel like you don't matter, you're replaceable. But could this not have been a conversation that happened before you landed 2 provinces from home? Could it not have been something that you mentioned in the months of planning this trip? That maybe you can't go on this trip, and that would have been fine. And everything would have been fine. This weekend was not about my finances. It was not about the bride's finances, which became a pretty, like, intense and in-depth conversation. And there were a lot of accusatory things being said about the bride's financial business. It's not about that. And it is not about you. It is about the bride. I can acknowledge I'm incredibly biased in this situation because she's my sister. I love her deeply, and whether she's right or wrong, I'm always going to be in her corner, and I'll try to help her towards right if she's wrong. But that isn't the point. I'm not saying that she's wrong in this situation. You know why? Because she deserves to have a weekend of fun, of peace, of celebration. She has had a really hard time. Don't forget that we're part of the same family, and I have a service dog now because of my childhood, okay? But that's not the point. The point is, this is why she deserves to have just one weekend, guys. I don't understand why day 1 of the trip had to be so much about everybody else instead of the bride. Especially since we all know that she gets stressed out easily because she wants everything to be nice for herself and for everybody else involved. We all probably just want everyone to be happy. Nobody goes out and thinks, wow, I'm gonna start some shit today. But you have to actively make the decision to not start some shit today of all days, you guys. But yeah, anyway, it's like 3:30 in the morning. I go out, find my sister. She's crying. Her eyelashes are falling off. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen. Quick note. These girls just let her wander out into bear country. So I go find her. She's on the phone with her fiance, thank God. And she gets off the phone, tells me from her perspective what happened. It's really sad, you guys. 20 years of friendship because of a drunk fight and finances. Done. They're not in the wedding party anymore, so she's lost her maid of honor and one of her bridesmaids. 2 of her best friends, above all else. 2 of her very best friends in the world. And she says that she doesn't want to be here anymore. Doesn't want to stay in Banff, which, like, reasonable. I was kind of wondering, like, what are we going to do? So my sister doesn't want to stay here. I am physically capable of driving us home. Let's go home. I can come back and pick up those girls in the morning. It's fine. Long story short, we could get back to civilization tonight and work things out. Have a good cry, whatever. But get this. My house, not exactly civilization to some people. No, because, oh my gosh, she was mad. The bride was pissed, you guys. Apparently, like, a pretty solid part of their argument outside was the fact that my house was shit. I mean, like, I wasn't there, but what I was told is that they said that my house was disgusting, that, like, I live with my mom and my sister, so I get it, but, like, come on. Let me explain to you something about mental illness and psychiatric disabilities. It's really hard, and it's not a secret that my house is a disaster, okay? I get it. We have dog hair. We have piles of things everywhere. I wanted to have a yard sale in July. As I'm sitting here recording this, it is July 30th. We're not gonna make it, boys. Didn't have a yard sale in July. But the fact that just to make her mad, you bring up the fact that, like, oh, your sister's house sucks. We don't want to stay there. We don't want to sleep on the floor. Nobody said anything about you sleeping on the floor. everything that we had been talking about as the plan since the conception of this whole trip idea, they were complaining about it. Like, you can't expect us to sleep on an airbed all weekend. We already slept on one at this person's house last night. Brr, 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 brr. Why? Why was that a thing that you brought up? Oh, drunk. There we go. You guys were having super important conversations drunk at between 2 and 3 a.m. You guys. So I went back up to the room, told Snape and Wormtail that I was gonna drive the bride back tonight, but I can come get them in the morning at checkout time because it's not that far. Banff is like an hour and a half from my house. It's not a big deal, especially given the circumstances. You guys don't have to stay with us. We can, you know, let the air clear, cool off a little bit, and then I'll come grab you in the morning or whatever. And they insisted that I leave them there, but they were like, you can't leave Frodo. Oh, right, Frodo, sleeping angel. Right, we woke up Frodo. Sweet snoring Frodo, who just was oblivious to anything that was going on. And she had no idea what kind of shit show she was about to wake up to, so I felt kind of bad. But anyway, I shook her shoulder lightly. Didn't fully expect her to wake up because, let's be honest, I just found out they were talking crap about me to my sister, and they did that. They went there. They made my sister cry and let her go off into the forest with the bears and wildlife in the middle of the night in Banff, Alberta. I was a little bit frustrated, reasonably, I would think. I was like, Frodo, shaking her shoulder, wake up. We have to go stay in my shitty house now. Wormtail kind of like leaned on the wall, like just upset. And you know what? Okay, it was passive aggressive. But guess what? That's something you said about me to my sister, and you're gonna act like you're entitled to be pissed off about the fact that she told me that you said that? Like, oh my god, the bride, what an unloyal bitch, right? But let's be honest, I was trying to be pretty cool about everything else. I was trying to remain neutral, even though it was quite obviously not so. But I didn't want to stir the pot anymore. But you know what? Just poke the bear a little bit. You know, the one that they let her sit outside with in the middle of the night. Safety last, ladies. So once she was conscious, Frodo was looking around like, okay, what's going on? Like, where's the bride? Later in the weekend, she told me that, like, she thought there was a medical emergency or something because she was woken up from a deep sleep. Everybody was crying. There were people yelling and just like, what's going on? Nobody told her what was going on. They were just like, get up, you have to pack, we have to go. Like, we have to go. Like, no, we're not talking about it. Like, didn't answer any of her questions. And I didn't know how to answer her questions. So I was just like, I'll tell you in the car, like, I'm just packing the bride's suitcase, blah, 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 trying to get our stuff together. So while Frodo was packing up her stuff, Wormtail was like, can I hug you? And I was really sad for these girls. They just lost their best friend. Like, no matter how it happened, friendships ended, ties severed, bridal party messed up, yikes, okay? So I was like, yeah, you can hug me, of course. And she was like sobbing into my shoulder, saying how, I'm so sorry, Kalela, this has nothing to do with you. This has nothing to do with you. You didn't do this. Like, we love you. We're so sorry. And I think she must have still been pretty drunk because you already know that I know what you said about my home. But it's not about me. It has nothing to do with me. Which is true. This weekend was not about me. God damn it! I don't know what happened after I finished packing and left the room to go wait with the bride, but Frodo and the other two were in the room finishing up. What ended up happening was that Wormtail and Snape stayed in the hotel room overnight, and they were trying to literally throw cash at Frodo, like, take this is for the hotel room, take it, and they were just hysterical. Frodo has a pretty firm understanding of consent, so she took the cash and put it back into their purses before leaving, because no, you're throwing, like, weird amounts of money at me and yelling at me and crying and not telling me what's going on. It's reasonable to think, we'll do this when you're sober. We left the room, went back down to my car, and everybody was just confused and upset. I drove us back to Calgary. We slept at my house. Next day, we got up and started cleaning. and getting ready for the party. Because you know what? Stuff happened, but it doesn't have to ruin the whole weekend, because that's not the point of the weekend. It is a once-in-a-lifetime trip for my baby sister, who is getting married to her best friend in 3 months. We're gonna party! We were all, I think, kind of maybe hoping. I was hoping and kind of assuming that we would be able to, like, hey, about last night, let's meet up somewhere in Calgary and, like, go for a walk. Exactly what Snape and the bride were planning on doing that day. But as a group, because there was some stuff to work out, boys. We needed to figure our shit out because it was a mess. But apparently, I don't know which one, but one of them, I believe, informed Frodo that they were going home early. They were flying back to Winnipeg. Okay. So they were gonna try to switch their flights, I think. And because they were booked, like, the bride had booked them and paid for them, even though it was, like, their names, they couldn't change the flights or whatever. And honestly, the bride was a little distracted. So, and they were never going to ask her, hey, can you change our flights? Like, even to see if it was a remote possibility. Wanna know how I know that? Because apparently they spent $500 each on flights home for Saturday morning. You mean to tell me you got in a screaming match in the wilderness, the beauty of Banff, my sister's favorite place in the world? You made her feel like shit in Banff on her weekend because you couldn't afford to cover her stuff, which she never demanded of you. She expected it because that's what I had been feeding her, okay? Maybe it's all my fault. Maybe I did this by saying, when we go out on the town, the bride doesn't pay for stuff. When we're in a bar or a restaurant, within reason, like especially the first meal at happy hour, we can split it, guys. And I should not have assumed that everybody was on the same page. But I've been in a few weddings now, and that's how it works. Go on Pinterest, learn your job as a bridesmaid, and don't up the entire night because you say that you're struggling so hard over a $40 bottle of wine split between the two people who are saying that they're struggling so hard, and then you collectively spend $1,000 to get home early because you don't want to sit across the aisle from the bride and Frodo on Monday morning for $0 more. Like, was it so important to get out of there as soon as possible without trying to address the issue? Like, what? The maid of honor and one of the bridesmaids bailed. They left. And then the weekend got really, really good. All right, friends, that's kind of the end of part 1 of this story because I kind of want to separate the BS from the fun times, you know? There'll be a part 2 coming eventually. It'll be the story time of the craziest weekend we've ever had. It was wild. It was so much fun. If this had to happen, I'm glad it happened when it did. Like, it would have been better if it happened before everybody was across the country. It would have been better if these conversations could have been conversations instead of fights before everybody was in Alberta. Since that couldn't happen, I'm really glad it was day 1 of the trip, before the wedding. We don't have to look at all the wedding photos for the rest of our lives and think, I wonder where those two are now. It's kind of a blessing that it happened when it did, but it's really sad and frustrating that it did happen. That's my story. It was wild. It was batch shit crazy, which was the theme of the weekend, so honestly, and Mercury retrograde. I don't know if you believe in that kind of thing, but let me tell you, I do now, okay? Okay. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, let me know. Please, please help the algorithm to favor me because I have to spend all my time cleaning my disgusting house. I don't have time to go to work, okay? Thank you for watching, genuinely. I appreciate you, all the people who have hung around while I was away. And don't forget to be kind to yourself and others today. Because this is the kind of stuff that happens when you forget.